Welcome back. Former President Jimmy Carter died last week at the age of 100. This week, the nation paused to say goodbye.
Tonight, in the somber silence under the Capitol dome, Jimmy Carter, the nation's longest-lived president, lies in state. Earlier today, the late president's remains were brought out from the Human Rights Center that's named for him in Atlanta, where the former Georgia governor had lain in state. An Air Force flight, Special Air Mission 39, carried the 39th president, who was born and died in Plains, Georgia, to a sunny and snow-covered Washington, D.C. The motorcade making its way to the U.S. Navy Memorial in downtown Washington. Carter authorized its construction when he was president. He served as a naval officer on board the country's first experimental nuclear submarine. It was his dream to join the Navy, and he chose this spot to play a special role in his own funeral. Carter's flag-draped casket was then transferred to a horse-drawn caisson and began its slow procession down Pennsylvania Avenue, the farewell echoing this historic moment from 1977, when the Carters got out of their car and walked to the White House on his inauguration day. Today at the Capitol, his casket was carried with care and precision, step by step. Vice President Kamala Harris remembering Carter as a president ahead of his time.
Jimmy Carter was that all too rare example of a gifted man who also walks with humility, modesty, and grace.
As tonight, the nation pauses to honor this son of the South and his remarkable century of service. Jimmy Carter returned to a very different Washington than the one he left after his presidency, even more divided than it was back then. But if only for a moment, it does seem as if there's some unity here in paying tribute to a remarkable American life. Terry Moran, ABC News, the Capitol.
Former President Jimmy Carter coming home to Georgia for the final time. Today, tributes in the tiny town of Plains at the Baptist church where Jimmy Carter taught Sunday school for all the years after the White House, a small private funeral. At the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. this morning, a state funeral.
He may be gone, but he's not gone far. The outpouring of love and support that we have felt from you and from around the world shows how many lives he has touched and how his spirit will live on in many ways for us.
All 5 living presidents there.
Because of patriots like Jimmy Carter. Throughout his life, he showed us what it means to be a practitioner of good works and a good and faithful servant of God and of the people.
Here in Plains, an outpouring of love where Carter's life began 100 years ago on a rural farm where a bell used to wake him up an hour before dawn. The peanut farmer who became the 39th president.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
Taking the oath of office in January of 1977, serving just one term, but perhaps most celebrated for the humanitarian work he did for decades after his presidency as the longest-lived U.S. president. Today, his family burying him next to his beloved wife, Rosalind, near their humble home in a place they both picked out.
As he returned to Plains, Georgia, for his final resting place, we can say goodbye. Jimmy Carter did justly, loved mercy, walked humbly. May God bless a great American and a dear friend and a good man.
The Carter family invited Secret Service agents who helped protect President Carter to today's events here in Plains. After nearly 45 years of his post-presidency, their service ends today. Rena Roy, ABC News, Plains, Georgia.
Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.